Welcome back to another explainer. So today we're looking at something that is just wildly entertaining on the surface, but underneath, it is a truly fascinating psychological case study of human behavior. We're breaking down a massive endurance challenge hosted by the creator Mr. Beast, where a bunch of random people were locked inside a fully stocked grocery store. And let me tell you, what starts out as a fun, goofy game show rapidly devolves into a modern-day Lord of the Flies. We're going to get into all the alliances, the better betrayals, and the sheer societal collapse that happens when you put humans into a high-stakes pressure cooker. Okay, let's dive right into this. Imagine, for a second, being trapped in a completely confined space. You've got infinite food, sure, but you absolutely cannot leave. The prize for being the last person standing? A life-changing $250,000. Now, that sounds pretty easy at first, right? You just sleep in the aisles, eat some snacks, no big deal. But as this experiment completely proves, the psychological toll of isolation, losing your basic comforts, and the intense paranoia of competing against strangers, it turns a standard supermarket into an absolute psychological battlefield. The whole thing kicks off with dozens of just everyday random shoppers. But reality, it sets in fast. When they're offered the chance to just walk away with carts full of free groceries, or when they suddenly realize they might actually lose their real-world jobs if they don't show up for work, people drop like flies. After that massive initial purge, exactly 33 contestants remain. Just 33. These are the folks who have seriously committed to outlasting everyone else, no matter how many weeks or even months it actually takes. Stage 1, the ultimate grocery trap. Moving right along to Stage 2. Forging a micro-society. So, faced with some really harsh realities, we're talking freezing store temperatures at night, and the absolute terror of dead cell phones completely severing their connection to the outside world. The group instinctively tries to fulfill Maslow's basic needs, shelter, warmth, security. They immediately start carving up this massive store into little territories. And right out of the gate, we see a huge contrast in survival strategies. On one side, we have the community builders. These players realize that survival absolutely requires cooperation. They form these deep alliances, pulling all their physical and emotional resources together. But then, on the flip side, you have the saboteurs. These are your chaotic lone wolves who figure out that to win, you just have to make the environment so absolutely miserable that everyone else decides to quit. And this brilliantly illustrates human ingenuity in the face of adversity. Just look at what these community builders managed to accomplish. One alliance literally barricades themselves by the freezers so they can control the meat supply. They actually name it Fort Freezy. Another group, calling themselves the Dream Team, just straight up takes over the manager's office for some privacy. You've got contestants building actual beds out of bulk napkin packages right there on the store shelves. Get this, they even hook up a hose behind a door to create a fully functioning, steamy makeshift shower. It is literally a masterclass in human adaptation. Honestly, these early days are like the golden age of this strange grocery store civilization. Like one contestant said, as long as we're a team, we can do anything. It's just incredibly wholesome at this point. There's even an older gentleman named Harry who goes around singing songs to the group, basically acting like a father figure to everyone. The contestants lean so heavily on these newfound alliances just for pure emotional survival. They're sharing meals, they're building little workout stations to stay physically active, and really, they're just keeping each other sane. But utopias never last. Let's look at Stage 3, psychological warfare and sabotage. Because as the days start dragging on into weeks, things get rough. Severe boredom, the emotional isolation from those super brief family visits through the glass, and just horrible sleep deprivation, it all starts triggering intense conflict. Look at how incredibly fast the store's conditions deteriorate here. Night 1 is all about this optimistic, fun fort building, but by night 4, the emotional toll is completely visible. You literally have contestants pressing their hands against the glass just to see their loved ones. And then night 5 hits and the tension just snaps. What starts out as a seemingly innocent, if annoying, prank where someone pops a pool floaty that was being used as a bed rapidly escalates into a massive, store-wide food-throwing riot. The aisles are totally trashed, and that cooperative spirit, it's completely broken. Now, the architect of all this chaos is a contestant named Xavian. He fully leans into this villainous turn, flat out saying, I just want to be the star of the show. He actually intentionally sneaks into the Dream Team's fort to pop their floaty bed, completely unprovoked. And when he gets caught, boom, that's what triggers the riot. People are screaming, they're chucking Pop-Tarts across the store, barricading themselves inside their little forts. Several exhausted contestants actually quit right then and there because they're just disgusted by the sheer childish anarchy of it all. But for Xavian, this was his organized chaos. But Xavian's absolute masterstroke of psychological warfare happens just a little bit later. See, the contestants have exactly one source of entertainment keeping them sane at this point, a basketball. So Xavian secretly takes this basketball and just tosses it right into the dumpster. The whole store wakes up to this dead silence, which is immediately followed by immense paranoia. And here is the crazy twist. Another contestant, Autumn, actually sees him do it and tells the rest of the group. But Xavian masterfully gaslights her, twisting the narrative to turn the alliances against Autumn instead. She ends up completely ostracized and isolated until she eventually just gives up and quits, leaving Xavian feeling, well, totally invincible. Which perfectly sets the stage for the climax of our whole social experiment. Stage 4, the top 10 betrayal. So once the older, more peaceful contestants and a pregnant mother decide they've had enough and leave, the remaining massive alliances end up uniting into this unstoppable boys' club, and their goal? To force out the independent players. So the crucial point is that right when tensions are hitting their absolute peak, an external force steps in. The sponsor offers a massive, massive temptation, a $5,000 cash buyout to anyone willing to quit right then and there, plus a box of local goods. For several of these totally exhausted contestants, a guaranteed $5,000 in their pocket is suddenly way more appealing than surviving the psychological torture of a grocery store for just a chance at the grand prize. So the herd thins out even further. With the numbers seriously dwindling down now, that dominant boys' club executes this incredibly cinematic sabotage. Okay, so the store has a limited number of hot plates, or burners, which you absolutely need to cook any real food. 2 players, Colin and Bryce, orchestrate a full-on heist. Step 1, they call everyone to the back of the store for a fake top 10 ceremony. Step 2, they kill all the lights. Step 3, while everyone is totally distracted and stumbling around in the dark, Colin rushes out of the shower and steals all the cooking burners. And step 4, because Xavian has already basically established himself as the resident villain, they effortlessly frame him for the whole theft. It's just brilliant dramatic irony, right? Because we, the viewers, know exactly who actually did it. And that brings us to the darkest final phase of the challenge, descent into total anarchy. At this point, any remaining social contracts are just completely ripped apart. We're talking no more shared meals. It is a raw, brutal battle of attrition. Now, the boys' club actually failed to steal one single burner, which belongs to an independent player named Juan. But because they've framed Xavian for stealing all the rest of them, they have to keep up the lie, which means nobody has access to a burner except Juan. So what is the dominant group's response to this? They hoard a secret stash of food all for themselves, and then they issue this incredibly tyrannical ultimatum. They tell Juan that if he doesn't share his burner, they will literally load every single piece of food in the store into a box truck and get rid of it. They are threatening to literally starve out the remaining competition. It is wild. Now, what's really interesting about this moment is the sheer raw hostility that just erupts. Juan rightfully refuses to be bullied into giving up his only advantage in the game. And in retaliation, a member of that dominant group violently smashes all of Juan's cooking pots and pans onto the floor, completely destroying them. The quote here, "I don't respect you at all. That's the difference," perfectly captures the total lack of empathy that has completely taken over this group. The grocery store isn't a community anymore. It has become a straight-up hostile wasteland. To really summarize the horrific conditions of these final days, just contrast it with how the experiment started out. Instead of happily building forts and taking those steamy makeshift showers, these contestants are weaponizing noise, literally violently banging pots and pans together at 4 a.m. just to purposely enforce sleep deprivation on the others. They're purging the communal resources, destroying property, and turning those once clean aisles into an absolute chaotic mess. It is just deafening, aggressive anarchy that is completely designed to break the human spirit. Which leaves us with this final, genuinely provocative thought. Think about it. We started with everyday, normal people happily pushing shopping carts around. And we ended with these sleep-deprived, warring factions hoarding resources and violently sabotaging each other in the dark. It really begs the question, when the walls of polite society are stripped away, what is the true price of human endurance? I mean, how quickly does our civilized behavior collapse into pure paranoia and sabotage when we are pushed to the absolute limit for a massive prize? It's a thrilling, but honestly kind of terrifying look at who we really are. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.